Hey guys, my guest tonight, Pat O'Connell, is going to be talking about UAPs and high strangeness in Texas. Be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? I think you all said well. Everybody's off work by now, I think. Let me push my other button here. Let me so I don't do weird things like last night. We don't end up like last night by me banning the guest by accident. That really sucked. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state of California, which means you could be anywhere and we could help you. The problem is it might take us a couple days. California is a huge state. People don't realize that. We've got it all here. We've got oceans. We've got mountains. We've got high desert, low deserts. You know, we've got swamp lands. Well, not swamp, but you know, muddy lands by the rivers and all that. I want to welcome everybody. For everybody that's watching from Facebook, if you haven't done so already and you like what you hear tonight, please be sure to hit that follow button. We're always looking for followers. And if you happen to be over on YouTube, same thing. If you haven't subscribed yet, we're trying to hit that 1,000 mark on YouTube by Christmas. And we're about 240 away. So if you can find it in your heart to follow, if you like what you see here tonight, that would be great. Also, for those two networks and for Twitch, because we're over on Twitch tonight, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and the hearts and the happy faces. Because by doing that and engaging in our chat room, it makes the computers at Facebook and Twitch and YouTube take a closer look at us, and they'll move us out to more people, so more people get to see us. And along that line too, if you have people in your home or wherever you're at, and you feel like you like the show tonight, why don't you share us? Share us. Pass us around. Pass us around if you don't like us. I just want to get the word out about the show. Okay, that's all I care. I want to get the word out about the show. As I said, you can find us on Facebook under California Haunts Radio, California Haunts, and Sacramento Seers, SEERS. You can find us on Twitter under California Haunts, or Cal Haunts. You can find us at TikTok under California Haunts. You can find us on Instagram under Ghosty Gal, all lowercase, and it's Cal Haunts over at Twitch. All right, so there's all kinds of ways to find us. Tonight's show, I'm really excited. I am a buff about UAPs and UFOs and things like that, and strange stories. And my guest tonight has a very interesting story to tell. And I'll let her go into details about it. She's the guest, right? Her name is Pat O'Connell. I'm sorry, Pat O'Connell. I thought about my neighbor down the street, O'Connors. Just hit me. But she's got an interesting story to tell about UAPs and some high strangeness in Texas. So let me bring her in, and let's get the show on the road. Hello, how you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Charlotte.
Took me a minute.
Nice to see you.
Sorry about that. Last night what happened, it was comical, is Nancy Mass was on the show. And when she came on, her mic wasn't working. So I went to kick her out of the studio last night so she could reset. I banned her by accident. That was a nightmare trying to get her back on. That's why when you didn't say anything at first, I was like, here we go again. So welcome. Never ban your guests. Anyway, welcome.
Well, thanks for inviting me and for not banning me.
That's it.
Yeah.
Tell. As they say,
if I'm good, you won't.
That's it. As they say, S happens, right? And it was just crazy last night. Then I stopped the show and restarted it.
It does indeed.
Yeah, it was just crazy. So tell me about you.
Well, I'm the least interesting part of all this. I mean, I'm a writer. I've been in the corporate world for decades doing marketing and technical writing and things like that, training for high-tech industries. I did stuff for NASA and nuclear power and things like that. So and now I've quote unquote retired. I am now doing work that's not painful. I want to do work that feels good. So I'm helping people write their own books. I'm doing investigations like this. I'm writing my own books. So occasionally I'll do a client project if it's fun and if it's not, full of drama and stuff like that. But I'm trying to enjoy my life now.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I'm kind of like in that spot too. I took care of my mom and dad for 10 years, retired from being a working journalist and doing this show. At least I'm able to do a little bit
Sure.
of that, plus cover, different stories like this. So I'm kind of doing what you like painless work, right? Like you say. You have a unique story to tell.
Yeah, and it sounds like, okay. I do.
We got a delay.
And it sounds like we have a little bit of a delay, so I'll try. Yeah. I'll try to accommodate.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about, the delay. So, where do you want to start with this story? Because it's a fantastic story.
Well, I can start with how I got involved in it. My brother Jim O'Connell was the one who actually started all this, and he believed he was an abductee, and I couldn't prove that he wasn't. And I trusted him and I believed him, and it took him a while. It took him several years to come to the realization that he wasn't just having really strange, vivid dreams. And once he got there, it was it was a revelation, and it really changed his life. So at the point I come into this story is he's been working this angle for years and years, and has talked to experiencers all over the world, and was collecting their stories for the purpose of interviewing them on this TV reality show that he was developing. And he saw so many shows out there that were about what he said about the vehicles. And we don't care about the vehicles, the UFOs. He said, this is about the experience. This is about the human experience. And whether it's a real phenomenon or if they're really being abducted, or it's just a psychological phenomenon, it was something that profoundly affected their lives. And he wanted to acknowledge that and respect what they were going through and tell their stories and help them feel more accepted. That somebody hears you and believes that you believe what happened. And so this is where he had been doing this for years, gathering these stories and developing, video film for the TV show, trying to get funding and all that. And so he called me one day and he said that he had an experiencer here in Texas, but he said the story that this guy had, the experiences that he had, were like beyond anything he had heard before. I mean, the closest that he could come to it would be the stories about the original Skinwalker Ranch, when it was just the rancher and his wife living there, and they were seeing some strange things. It wasn't what we see on TV today. It was the up close and personal. You're seeing these blue lights flying through, or poltergeist kind of things, or a portal and a UFO. I think they had a couple of sightings of UFOs out there. But he said, this guy is even beyond that. And so he said, I can't tell his story in a 1 hour episode of my show. Even if I did a 3-show arc, I couldn't cover it all. So he said he wanted to know, since I'm here in Texas, my brother was in Connecticut, and he wanted to know 2 things. Would I be interested in meeting with this guy and kind of vet him? Is he a nutcase? And, in which case Jimmy wouldn't need to come down here for that.
Mhm.
And two, would I be interested in writing maybe a book, or multiple books, or maybe even a screenplay, or maybe all of them to cover the breadth of this story? And I'm like, well, yeah, that sounds kind of interesting. And, and then Jimmy said, and by the way, this guy says that he shot and buried an alien. And imagine, if you will, somebody telling you this with complete sincerity. And I'm thinking, on the one hand, that sounds completely crazy. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, if this is true, this would be, this would change everything. This would be one of the most uh, profound things to happen to humanity ever. So, yeah, I said, absolutely, I'm in. So that's kind of how I got into this story. And after that became, at that point, now I start interacting with Clay.
Wow. Absolutely wow. And I mean, there has to be a reason why he shot this alien. So what was the build up to that?
Well, that we'll get to that probably at the end of the hour, because
Okay.
there's so much that happened that led to um, his, first of all, his fear of the aliens,
Okay.
um, and then to the kind of the knee-jerk reaction that led to this shooting. So, but what happened was, first, there were ships, there were sightings, um, and then he started playing with lasers, because he had. I mean, okay, let me back up. Clay Wheeler was a he was an aircraft repair guy. He had his own shop at a little tiny, tiny airport in the middle of nowhere, and he had people working for him who they would help repair these airplanes. And so they're in a situation where you don't really want to see UFOs or UAPs.
Right.
That's,
Right.
I mean, these today it's a little more accepted, as you know, but in
Mhm.
those days, this was back in 2010, and all the strangeness happened between 2010 and 2013. And he had been at this airport for many years before that. Nothing had happened. So I I don't know I still don't know what happened between 2009 and 2010 that caused all this to start up. But I have a team where we're still investigating. We're hoping to figure out, is there something out there that could have caused either hallucinations or these crazy real events. We don't know.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
for him, it started, when it started, it was seeing craft in the sky. And
Mhm.
at first it was a little dot in the sky. But he would take a laser, and he could point it at some of these lights. Would be behaving strangely, in ways that he knew aircraft. He knew all kinds of aircraft. He knew what planets were. Uh, he knew what things could do and what they couldn't do. So he's with the laser, and this was before we were warned not to shine lasers in the sky because we could blind pilots. But yeah. So he's out there playing laser tag with some of these lights, and he said they would dodge the laser light, and so he'd go after, and they would do these movements that no plane can do, a satellite can't do. He knew this, and so that's how it started. And then one night, I guess he pissed off one of these things, and it came in, and it hovered over the runway. The first one was just this, what he called the soap bubble. It was just this luminous ball, but it was huge. And then he watched it for a while, and he didn't know what what it was or what it was going to do to him or if it could do anything to him. And he said he watched it for a while, and then suddenly it shot up into the sky, not too far, and then it dove into the ground and it disappeared. And he's thinking, at first he expected a crash or a splat or something. And he started examining the tarmac of the runway, trying to figure out, is there, kind of testing it to see, did it dissolve? Did it crater? Is there some damage to it from this thing that dove into it? But there was no evidence at all that there was ever anything there. So that was kind of the beginning of his realization that this was a different kind of reality happening. And so, so there were other things, but part of this story is not UFOs. So there were Mexican hat UFOs. There was a pork pie hat was the first image he got a picture. His first thing he got a picture of in the sky, and other types of craft that we'd be more familiar with. But there was also the effects of this place on people's personalities, on their behaviors. And over time, people started turning dark. They would, their moods would get dark. Their behavior would become erratic and very strange. And he found out over time that it wasn't just at his hangar, but it mostly affected his wife. And so the stuff that went on with him, with her, was that she turned from being kind of a prim and proper wife, and everything was normal. And then she moved into the airport. So he had this building that had a hangar on one end, an office in the middle, and then he built an apartment on the other end so that they could live in it while they were building a house. They had bought some land near the airport, and they were going to build a house on this land. So they were living as, it was just a small apartment on the other end of the hangar building. But when she moved in, suddenly her behavior started to change. And she became more and more aggressive and angry. And at one point, he took her out to dinner. He was thinking, she's stressed over work. She was working the night shift, and he was working a lot because he was trying to build up his business, and he was hiring more people, and he was trying to expand the business. So both of them were, kind of disconnected. And so her behavior started getting weird. So he takes her out to dinner, and they got into a fight at dinner, and she storms out. Well, they both had their trucks out there because she was going to go to work, and then he was going to go back to the airport. And so they're out in the parking lot, and they're arguing. She slams her truck door. He's holding the truck door while he's talking to her. She's inside the truck, and she slams the door on his hand and takes off with it, dragging him. And she drags him like a mile and a half from her truck, and then just opens the door and lets him go. I don't know if she realized suddenly that he was hanging off of her door, or I would think she would know, or if she knew that and did it on purpose. I don't know. But when she finally opened the door, and he went flying, and he said he ended up in the hospital. He had multiple broken ribs. He had, I think he broke both arms and one leg. So he was a mess for a while. But he kept justifying. He kept saying that, she's very stressed, and he kept making excuses for her. And then one day, and this is as things progressed, as time progressed at the airport, he got sicker and sicker. Of course, he was more damaged too for things like that happening. But things got stranger and stranger. There were poltergeists activity. There was demonic stuff, and we can talk about that. And so she got stranger and stranger. And one morning she woke up and she had her belly was swollen. Now she was fit, she was in good shape, but she woke up one morning with this belly that he said looked like she was 8 months pregnant. And he's freaking out thinking, what in the world? What kind of, like, could she been bitten by a snake or, venomous spider, or what kind of thing can cause this? And he's like, we've got to get you to the doctor right away. And she didn't want to have anything to do with that. She got totally angry with him to the point where she was like, she wasn't going to let him get her dressed even to go to the doctor. And finally she jumped up on the couch. She was pacing on the couch like a mad woman. And he's trying to calm her down and saying, I'll just take you out for pancakes or, whatever. And finally he tries to get close enough to her to grab her, and she kicks him in the head. He falls over the coffee table, ends up cracking his head on the tile floor, and he's out. And then when he wakes up, she's gone. And so he's frantic, trying to figure out, where did she go? What happened to her? What is going to happen to her? Is this thing going to split open? And then some, the alien creatures are going to come out like in the Alien movie. And, he calls everybody he can think of. And so, he can't leave because he's afraid if he leaves, she'll come back, and he wants to be there so he can take her to the hospital. And so hours pass, he's frantic, and she just wanders back in her t-shirt and panties that she was in from bedtime when she got up that morning, and her belly was flat. The belly was gone, and he had no idea what had happened. So then the third thing that happened with the wife, the third major thing, was that he and his crew were working in the shop and repairing airplanes and doing what they do. And she drives up and she takes out his 38, his snub-nosed 38. And he had a lot of guns. We're in Texas. People have guns here. And he happened to be a licensed gun manufacturer. So he could he could repair guns. He could make replica antique guns and things like that and sell them at gun shows and things like that. So he had a lot of guns. Apparently she got a hold of his 38, and she walks into the shop and starts shooting at everybody. And luckily she either was a bad shot or she didn't really want to shoot anybody. He claimed that she didn't intend to hurt anybody, but that was him again making excuses for her and trying to justify what she did. So it was after that incident that he had to finally divorce her. But up to that point, he was making excuses and trying to understand that, she was being affected. He thought she was possessed, really. So.
How fascinating. And how did they figure that the aliens had caused this, or did they, with her, to figure out if she'd been abducted, or how did that work?
Right. Well, I mean, he never did know what was affecting her. He felt like it was kind of a demonic possession. So
right, okay.
That's a whole other aspect to this thing. At first he thought it was just aliens. So let me tell you about the aliens that he saw. So when he got divorced from his wife, now she's no longer living at the airport. So he's there by himself at night. And literally, he's the only one at the airport at night. And so the first incident with the aliens, I mean, there had been another one with her that was actually the first aliens that he saw. And I'll tell you that story because she was still living there.
Sure.
They had gone to the store and she was driving. And when they came back from the store, as they were coming up on the hangar, and this was about twilight, and it was in the summer, so twilight was pretty late, and so it was still light, and but not light enough that they could see details. But they saw this egg-shaped craft on top of the hangar, and they saw, and there were like 3 struts, and it kind of reminded me, if you're familiar with the Lonnie Zamora story. Um, he described an egg-shaped craft, and it had 3 struts on it, and that's what he saw on top. This is what Clay Wheeler saw on top of his hangar, and he said there was this creature that was on the hangar, and he said all I could see was that it looked kind of like a stick figure. It was very thin, so that's all he could see. Of course, the sun was setting behind the ship and behind the alien, so he couldn't make out any deed. The ship, it was like this ship was about to take off with this alien still trying to get back in, and so the little alien's scrambling to get eyes into the hatch, and it looks like my feed is cutting in and out, but hopefully you can still hear me.
Yeah, you're fine.
And so this ship rose, and it went off into the sky. And so that was the first sighting of aliens, but he really didn't get a good look at them that time. So now his wife, he's divorced his wife, and she is no longer, he's there living by himself at the airport. And one night he woke up at 3:00 in the morning, and he said that happened a lot after all this stuff started. He would wake up at 3:00, and he felt like there was something meaningful about that was like the witching hour or something. I don't know. But he woke up, he couldn't sleep. And so he said, well, I guess I'll call my sister. His sister was working in China at the time, so it was middle of the day for her. And so he started chatting with her on the phone, and he was telling her that, there was this weird stuff happening. And she's like, maybe you'll have to tell me this stuff later when we're not on my work phone, kind of thing. So she was being kind of hesitant. So, he's just trying to hint around, like, I've seen ships in the sky, and she's being kind of vague, as if people can overhear her, and she doesn't want to, let them in on this weird stuff that she's talking about. So as he's talking to her, he was kind of a nervous, antsy kind of guy. And so he's pacing, he's talking on the phone, and he's walking around the apartment, and just for no particular reason, he walks over to the door that is between the apartment and the office. And he just, kind of nervously grabs the doorknob, and he starts to open it up, just force of habit. And as he's opening the door, he said he saw these 2 gray aliens, and they were 3.5, 4 feet tall. Silver. He said they were more silvery than gray. So it was like they were spray painted silver. And he said the weirdest part of that he can remember, and this whole little sequence happened in just a matter of seconds. But he said as he opened the door, the 2 aliens moved out of the way like they were a gate. They moved like they were joined together like a gate. And I'm thinking, as a skeptic, who would make this up? If you were making up a story, who would make that up? So, I mean, that was, it was a small detail, but for me as a skeptic, and I'm sure you understand, because, you go into investigations looking to debunk the things that you can debunk, because the coolest part is what you have left when you've debunked everything. And so that's kind of where I was going, and I'm thinking, well, this is weird. So he said that was so unusual for him. And then he said that, and he remembered all the details about what these guys look like. But then he said, I looked over to my right and there was this tall guy, and it was not at all like the Greys. He said it was had tan or brown skin. It was he said it was naked as far as he could tell, but there were no features. So it was like a Ken doll, you know. It's there. It was just like it had been molded or something, and there were no genitals or anything, no features on this body. But he said the head was really big, and the eyes were like not quite the size of baseballs, but they were large and they were bulged out like they were too big for the sockets that they were in, and the lids closed top and bottom. And he said the back of the head had two kind of protrusions in the back. And you know, I tried to find drawings or images that people had, you know, paintings or something that people had made of aliens that they had seen, and I couldn't find anything that was like this at all. So again, the skeptic in me is saying, you know, if he's making this up, he's not pulling from the lore that's already out there. Right. So that I found interesting. So anyway, so all of this happened in the space of just a few seconds. And he said, when he saw this big guy on the right, he said, it stepped forward, and he said, I knew right away this was the bodyguard for the two little guys. And when that guy stepped forward, he said, I panicked. I dropped the phone and shut the door, and I didn't go back for hours. And now when I talked to his sister, she said that what actually happened was that he said, gotta go. And then the line went dead. So, so she's kind of a witness to the event, even though she didn't know at the time what was happening. Because I guess there was no sound coming from the aliens. And he wasn't saying anything to her. He was just stunned. He was stunned and taking this all in. So that was his first really close-up encounter with the aliens.
Let's go back a little bit to the pregnancy.
And there,
let's go back a little bit to that pregnancy, because I'm intrigued about why was he thinking it was a demon possession?
He felt like her behavior had changed so much. She had become angry. Before she had been prim and proper. He said she wouldn't swear. You know, even if she was telling a story about somebody swearing, she would find a substitute for the swear word. But after all this started, as it progressed, her language became rougher. I was looking at one of the interviews that I had done with him, and he said, I told her one time, I sure like it when you talk with that deep voice like a man. And he said she got really mad. But wow. So this was all part of it. So he was thinking that, you know, she would become angrier. She was using dirty words. Their intimate encounters were more aggressive and you know, dirty talk and things like that. And she was more angry, and she would lash out very, very easily. And so he started thinking, and I don't know where he got that, because it wasn't until after that had started that he saw he had a couple of encounters with what he believed to be demonic entities. Okay. But I don't know whether by the time I met him, he had interpreted her behavior as demonic possession, you know, an indication of demonic possession, or whether he thought it at the time. Because he told me that when all this started, he said, I was as religious as a hog. He said, I was really Catholic. I totally abandoned the faith, and his mom was very faithful. And, you know, the fact that he had pulled away from his religion was, you know, it upset his mom. And so, he didn't have, but he had that background. So I think maybe that was what he pulled in, it tapped into to interpret what was happening here. Um, but now after she moved out, one night he was in his living room, and I think it was the middle of the night. And I don't know whether the thing woke him up or whether he was already awake, but he said there was this blue energy being, and he said it was like an angel. It was blue plasma like electricity, and he said I interpreted it as being an angel, but then I told myself, but it's got brown hair and angels have blonde hair. And then I thought, wait a minute, where did you get the idea that angels had to have blonde hair? So he got into this conversation with himself when this amazing thing was in his living room, and he said it was just this undulating light, like sheer blue fabric. But he said he felt like this was an angel, and he said that was going on for a while. And he actually got out some instruments trying to find out, is this electricity, is this plasma, is it hotter or colder than the surrounding environment. And so he watched this for a while, and he thought about what he could do to figure out what it was, or maybe make it go away. But he didn't want to make it go away. He said it was incredibly beautiful. And then he said after a while he saw this dark energy come up from the floor, and he's like, I'm on a slab here, there's nothing under there. So what is this energy coming up through the floor? And it was dark, and he said it was male, and he felt like this was a demon that was coming up and seducing, and really violating this angel. And he said he watched this dance of what he considered, he finally said, is this a play acting out? Is this, whatever these forces are they acting out this play of good and evil in terms I can understand, an angel and a devil or something? And he said it went on for a while, and then eventually it was like the angel force, this angel blue light, seemed to vanquish the dark light, the dark energy, and it went back, and then she disappeared. And so he wondered, why did this happen? Am I supposed to learn something from this? Is it telling me something? You know? So that was part of why he started thinking about, angels and demons. And then another time, another time he saw a portal open. And that was something that actually happened in the Skinwalker, the Skinwalker story. And he said it wasn't like not like a Stargate or anything like that. It was just like a door. And he said it was like there was a window shade, only on the side, and it was pulled open. So this portal was being pulled open, and he said all these ships came out of it. There were creatures that came out of it. There were these like aliens came out of it. But he said there were also these creatures he called the man walking wolves. So they were like wolves, but they were walking on their hind legs. And so all of these things came out of this portal. And I asked him how long did it stay open? And he said it was about an hour. And he said that, when it was over, he said, I wished I had kept a record of what all came out to make sure it all went back in, or is it still here? So, some of the ways that he thought were, just so interesting. But so now, and I'm looking I'm watching the time. I want to make sure that I get to the point where, um,
Right.
I explain to people why he was so scared. Now, granted, some of this stuff would have scared me that I've told you
Right.
already. But then he was there were two there were a couple of encounters in the hangar with the small grays, and one was the really bad one. Was there was a gray in the shop, and I think he was there. It was late. Everybody had gone except for his secretary, and they thought it was a child that had gotten into the hangar. And so this child in a gray shirt that they thought, they're thinking it's cold out. And this is the middle of nowhere. How could a kid
Right.
be so far away from home? And it'd be freezing. So we've got to find this kid and get him back home. So they're trying to find this kid, and then at one point it darts out from behind. He had like all these explosive gases, like acetylene for welding, and he had propane and all kinds of things. So this thing had gone behind these tanks, and he's like, okay, well, I got to get this little boy or this little kid, whoever it is, out from there. Well, it comes around beside these tanks, and he sees that it's not a little boy, it's an alien. And so he's got his gun. So he had started carrying guns with him. He had a gun on his workbench, he had a gun on his hip. He didn't know what they were going to do. So this alien comes out, and he draws his gun, and he can't shoot too close to the tanks because that would cause an explosion. It would, this would be super bad. So and also he was fascinated by the aliens. I don't want people to think this was all scary. He was fascinated by the aliens. He was scared. Yes, he was deathly scared, but he wanted to communicate with them, and he wanted to know what they know. And in fact, even one night, he packed a bag and went and sat on the runway, like he wanted them to come and take him for a ride on their ship. And it was so cute. He said I packed like 3 days worth of underwear, and three he brought rolls of toilet paper, but he said I didn't bring any extra clothes, because I figured they'd give me one of the jumpsuits that they have. Who thinks that? So anyway, so he's in the hangar, and there's this small alien, and he's about to draw on it, and it's got this breastplate on it, and there was this blue light that shot out of the breastplate, and it was like a laser beam, like some kind of energy weapon. And he said it was about 4 inches in diameter, and it cut through everything in the hangar. So through planes, through scaffolding, through workbenches, whatever was in the way, and it cut a hole through the outside of the hangar. I mean, this is corrugated steel that it cut a hole through that. And so he's totally freaking out, and he didn't know what happened to his secretary. He's thinking she got killed, or that the thing killed it. So he's trying to find her. He's trying to get away from this alien. And so he has to go find her. And once he finds her, by the time they get back, the alien is gone. But both of them are completely deathly afraid. And they didn't see that alien again. But now that really amped up the fear, as you can imagine. And so time passed, and they never saw that one again, but they saw another one, and he was actually working during the day, and he saw it, and boom, he pulls out his gun and he shoots it, and it falls down. Well, that one didn't die. And so a couple of his employees were there, and so they got out of the hangar because the thing was outgassing where he had shot it. And he felt really bad for shooting it. But they're thinking, okay, I don't know what this gas is going to do to us. So they left the hangar. And when they came back, they, waited for a while. When they came back, the thing was gone. And so he was thinking, I really hope that like the alien paramedics came and got him, because I don't want to kill any of these aliens. I didn't mean it. I mean, it was just, it caught me by surprise. So then the last time when he saw another of these, and he's thinking, is it going to have the blue beam? Is it going to kill me? And he saw another, the third alien, and it wasn't too much longer after the second one. And he shot it and killed it. And, he said, I'm looking at this alien body and I'm thinking, if you had told me 2 years, 3 years ago that I'd have an alien body and wouldn't put it in the back of my truck and drive it all over the country, take it on the Oprah show, on CNN, everywhere, showing, hey, I've got an alien body here, I would have said you were crazy. But he said, when it actually happened, I froze. He said, I needed time. I didn't know what to do. So he bagged it up and he put it in a, heavy plastic, black plastic contractor's bag. He actually double bagged it and cinched it with, zip ties. And he's like, I need time. I need to think about, what am I going to do with this? Oh my God. And so he took it to his cousin's restaurant and put it in the walk-in freezer. And he told his cousin it was a feral pig that he had shot. We have wild pigs in Texas everywhere. People need to shoot more of them because there's too many of them. And so, yeah. And so, he left it there for a while until he realized that, no, he decided he needed to do right by it. And so he gave it a kind of a proper burial. And so in the meantime, so this is all the stuff that happened to him. So now I'm in the story, and my husband and I go and we interview him. And I told him that what I wanted to do was to, I wanted to debunk the things we could debunk. Like he had pictures of what people call rods or skyfish. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's just really a flying insect that your camera shutter isn't fast enough to freeze. So it's getting a multiple exposure. So it looks like a flying snake with a bunch of wings on it. And so, he kind of resisted that, but eventually he appreciated the fact that I told him that I believed he had some phenomenal, real experiences. And I wanted the audience of Jim's TV show or my books or whatever, I wanted them to believe him. And in order to do that, we needed to get rid of the things that were easy to debunk. So in the middle of all this, me interviewing him multiple times, going out to the airport, spending the night on the runway, trying to, come on down, aliens, let's talk. I mean, I wanted to see them, and didn't. But we continued to communicate. We exchanged emails. We talked on the phone. And then one night I got a phone call from my niece, and my brother had died in his sleep. Wow. And so that was a real gut punch for me and for Clay. And we both were kind of stunned. What do we do now? We've got all this material. We've done these interviews. Jimmy wanted to tell this story, but what do we do? And so we kind of fumbled for a while, and like I said, we stayed in touch. And about a year later, um, I decided I needed to do something to acknowledge my brother. And so I created a memorial video, and I sent it out to everybody. I posted on Facebook, and I made sure that the people who had contacted him, the experiencers and his team and people like that, knew it was out there, and emails. And I sent it to everybody, including Clay. And I knew that Clay and Jimmy had become very close, like brothers, and that he would certainly have watched the video, and he would have called me or emailed me and said something about it. And I didn't hear back from him. And I didn't hear back, which was unusual, because I did, he and I talked almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day, either by email or on the phone. And so when I didn't hear from him for a while, I got worried, because throughout this 3.5 years of all these experiences, I said, he had gotten sicker and sicker and weaker and weaker. And so his health was not good. He had a blood clot in his lung the size of a quarter, I think he said, or a $50.
Wow.
He said the doctor said it would have killed a normal man. But he was tough. But all of this stuff just kind of piled up. And so when I hadn't heard from him, I contacted his sister, and I emailed her, and I said, is he okay? And she said, no, he's in the hospital. He's been in the hospital for a month or whatever. He has multiple organ failure and flesh-eating bacteria. And if he survives, they're going to have to cut off huge patches of his skin. And the next day, she told me he had died. So, that was really, and that left me in a very strange place. And it actually took me several years before I decided that I needed to at least write the book. I knew I couldn't pick up from where my brother left off with a TV show. I was completely incompetent to do that. So yeah, I wrote the book, Bleedthrough, a true story of aliens, demons, and pure evil in Texas.
Yeah.
And in fact, and we lost all the material that was on it, but we regained the domain name, which is experiencers.com, with an X at the beginning, just an X at the beginning, experiencers.com. And you can get information there. But after he passed, I contacted his mom, actually a couple of times, and we talked. And one of the things she told me was that when he was little, when he and his sister were little, the family had taken a trip in their travel trailer, in their truck, to Alaska. And on the way back, they were in Idaho. And they had pulled over on the side of the road for the night. Mom and dad were both too tired to continue driving to get to a truck stop or, a campground or whatever. And so they just pulled off at a wide spot in the road and all went to sleep in the travel trailer. And she said, in the middle of the night, she woke up hearing this strange clicking sound coming from outside the trailer. And she said it was coming from two different places. And she said she knew it was a language. There were creatures that were speaking to each other in this clicking language. And she said, I knew right away it was aliens. And she said, I don't know why I thought it was aliens. This is back in the 60s, and it wasn't the big deal it is now, and it wasn't as prevalent, and it wasn't like the top of your mind when you think of something strange. And so she said, but I knew it was aliens. So I woke up my husband, and she said he jumped out of the travel trailer. He got dressed, and he grabbed his gun, and he jumped out with his keys, and he got in the truck, and he pulled off, and just slammed, sped away. And she said, but I feel like that night, at least Clay was abducted, if not all of us. And she said, I think he had been abducted possibly all his life. Now, she didn't want to talk about this. She was so not into this thing. She was so not into the aliens. But she absolutely believed this part of it. And so when she talked about the clicking sound, I said, I knew that there had been, my brother made what's called a sizzle reel. And it's just like a video trailer. Only it's for investors and for potential producers of your TV show or whatever. And it kind of gives them a little teaser of it. And I remembered there was one part in that sizzle reel where there was a strange kind of interference as they were filming. They were out. I don't remember where they were. They were somewhere in Arizona, which, makes sense. But while they were filming this part of the sizzle reel, there was this strange interference on it, and it sounded kind of like a clicking sound, but it was no kind of interference ever. And so I said, hold on. And so I looked on my computer while I was talking on the phone, and I pulled up that sizzle reel and I fast forwarded to that place where it had that weird interference. Is this what it sounded like? And she said, yeah, I think so. Now, this was 50 years ago.
Wow. What an incredible story. And is it hard for you now that he's gone?
I've kind of taken the... Go ahead.
Is it hard for you to find, to do this research since he's been gone? Because all you have is pretty much what he told you. And, it seems like you're trying to verify a lot of this stuff. So is it really hard to find this, to do the research on this?
Yes, we have. It has been very difficult. And in fact, the book was kind of hard to write because he gave me lots of incidents that happened. But when I knew I was going to write a book, and before he had passed away, I was trying to get him to tell me, what was your normal life like? What was what normal stuff was interrupted by these crazy things? And I never got that information. So I kind of had to fill that in with my imagination. But it was very hard to find. We're just now finding some of the witnesses. I've done a couple of interviews. Like I said, I talked to his mom, I've talked to his sister, and we interviewed one of the witnesses to some of the stuff. And the witness believes that it was all demonic. He believes none of it was alien. So, it's a, you can interpret it any way you want. I don't know.
That's interesting. And then there's also the stories, where I've had guests on the show in the past that have said that, instead of these being aliens, they're fallen angels. So that's what makes it so interesting.
Could be. Yeah. I mean, I just don't know.
Wow. You know what? This hour went by so fast, and I thank you. I mean, this is so fascinating. It's just incredible.
Well, I feel bad. I kind of talked the whole time. So
that's okay. I wanted to let you do it because we had the hour, so I wanted you to tell the story, and it worked, right? I mean, this is just an incredible story. Do you guys, as far as that alien body, did he ever tell you where it was buried?
He did. And the problem with that is that he told my husband that he might have booby trapped it.
Oh, wow.
And how do you know how do you not know you booby trapped it? But he said, I was on a lot of drugs at the time. And, normally if somebody says that, you think recreational drugs, but no, like I said, he had gotten sicker and sicker throughout all this time. So he was on pain meds and different things. He had kidney failure at one point, and then it went away. I mean, just weird health stuff.
Right.
So anyway, the point is, in order to go find this, whatever he buried, I mean, there might be nothing there. There might not be anything there. So we're prepared for that. But I have a team of people. We have, ground penetrating radar. We've got metal detectors. We've got all kinds of sensors, LiDAR, and we're gonna actually try to test the area to see if there's any like toxins or gases that could have caused hallucinations, looking for kind of a conventional explanation. And, maybe we'll rule that out. Maybe we won't. But, just trying everything. And then because it might be booby trapped, we have a team of bomb sniffing dogs, and we have a very experienced military bomb tech to he will be the one that will guide us in terms of, once we find a spot that looks promising, he will be in charge of, how we dig it out, how we handle it, and then the dogs will kind of give us a clue. I don't know how reliable it is, but, we will have another way to determine. And actually, I think our guy with the drones has an explosives sensor as well that he can deploy for this as well. So we'll have a couple of ways to know whether or not we're dealing with explosives. And even if we don't sense anything like that, we'll still have the bomb tech in charge of excavating whatever's there, because we want to be as careful as possible. So that's why the location has been disguised. It's right. The location is made up in the book. And, once we do this, then we'll be able to reveal where it actually happened. But right now, we don't want anybody going out there and running the risk of, blowing themselves up or the evidence. So
perfectly understandable. And I would love to have you back on after you do that. I want to hear more. You've got me so pulled into this that stopping it just seems rude at this point, Well,
and the funny thing is that the book, I had to leave a whole bunch of these events out of the book. And so, we're trying to cram stuff into an hour here on your show. Well, imagine in a 300 and some page book, I had to leave a bunch of stuff out. So, so we're gonna, we're gonna do a video and maybe a mini series. I don't know. All I know is that we're filming everything.
Okay. Well, if that's okay, we could do it now. Let's definitely plan on getting you back on, because this
absolutely, I would love to do that.
This is absolutely fascinating. All right, can you tell everybody your website once again?
It is experiencers.com with an X, experiencers.com, just with an X at the beginning. And you can find the book right now in ebook and paperback on Amazon. And right now we're working on the audiobook for all of you who like to listen to your books, which I do.
Fantastic.
Sometimes.
Well, yeah, every Sunday I have a real good audience, because that's Sunday reading day, and I pick a paranormal book and I read from it.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, nice. I love it.
On Sundays. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I'll be emailing you soon.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This was fun.
Absolutely. And I'll be emailing you soon to get you back on, because I know there's still more of this to tell. And wow, you've got my undivided attention.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Have a great one. All right. So, I told you guys yesterday it was going to be a great show, and it was. It's everything that I figured it was going to be. I have read the book. The book is terrific. And, wow, you guys don't know half the stuff like she says. All right, tomorrow, keep an eye out. We are not going to be on this time. We're going to be on at 1 p.m. Pacific, and we're going to have Hans Wilhelm on, who's going to be talking about Satanism in society. So that's going to be an interesting talk. I heard him on another show, and wow, the stuff he's got to say. So that'll be 1 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. Okay, that being said, if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We're equal opportunity here. We're just trying to get the word out about our show. And again, I want to thank you all for coming, and I will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific. Have a great evening, everybody.